Good evening, ladies and gentlemen out there in the virtual world. My name is Janice Olbina. I am the Manager of Park Planning and Development for the Town of Oakville in the Parks and Open Space Department. I'm going to be very candid with you all and say that this is my first Zoom consultation that I've had since the advent of COVID over a year ago. It's certainly a different format than what I'm used to, so I will apologize for any mistakes that I make up forward and ask that you bear with us. I'm going to, see, we have our first technical glitch already. I'm trying to advance the slide here on the presentation, and there we go. Thank you very much, technical support. I'm just going to briefly introduce a couple of staff members and our consulting team that are with me in support this evening. I would also like to recognize through the Zoom virtual world, we have your Ward 3 councillors, Dave Giddings and Janet Hazlitt-Veal are both online to participate in this session tonight. I also have David Sun, who's a landscape architect and will be project manager for this project going forward. And two members of our consulting team are Marianne McCricky from OMC Landscape Architecture and Michael Biltiana, I'm sorry, I know I was going to mess that up, is from ATA Architects, and they will be making presentations for a portion of tonight's consultation to you all. So we have a meeting agenda in front of you. I'll also let you know that this Zoom format meeting is intended to be a written Q&A feature that you should have in your Zoom format. As questions come in, they'll be read out and we'll have the opportunity to answer them. If for some reason we miss something, we will certainly have the ability to respond to you by traditional email or phone calls following this evening's meeting. Our plan is to have the full presentation available on our website, hopefully by the end of the day tomorrow. And we'll be looking to get public comments closed in about 2 weeks' time following tonight's meeting. And I'm also just going to let you know that we are recording tonight's presentation, and we may choose to put the full recording via YouTube video on the website as well, pending some discussion with the senior management team here after tonight's meeting. So with that in mind, I'm going to move along and just kind of walk you through some of the background and introduction to the project about why we're here today. And I'll start by referring to an aerial photo of the Wallace Park area as it stands today. It's a neighborhood park in the Ward 3 and has been there for many years. It currently features a very informal ball diamond, a large open grass area, and then is home to the Wallace Park Tennis Club, which operates under a lease agreement with the town and has the clubhouse that's labeled here on the aerial photo, as well as the 5 tennis courts and the 2 practice court areas as well. I'm also going to just let you know that we're not going to speak too much about the tennis court area tonight. As noted, the tennis club is under a lease agreement with the town, and we are currently having lease negotiations with them for a renewal of their property, and we may be having some discussions with them about potential changes to that area within their lease as well. But we're really going to focus on the balance of the park this evening and the plans that we want to share with you. So back in 2018, our department conducted a study that eventually became referred to as the Southeast Campus of Parks. It basically started or was initiated as a result of the town acquiring the old hospital site and then making plans for the new Oakville-Trafalgar Community Center, which was built last year. But we started to look at the various park and open spaces around that area. We decided to kind of look at them collectively, and we developed this kind of working title of Southeast Campus of Parks. And it included Wallace Park, the new Oakville-Trafalgar Park beside the new community center, the Wyndham Parkette that was completed, I think about 1.5 years ago now, which is near the Wyndham Manor, and Brentwood Park as well, which is not listed here. The consultant that was working with us through all of that study was a group called MBTW, and they prepared the original concept for Wallace Park as well. When they did this Campus of Park study, it was done with the idea of developing a theme and a certain type of program for each of the park spaces. And at a very high level, I'll say that Wallace Park was designed to be a youth-oriented facility. Brentwood Park was meant to be for the kind of the junior young children area. The Wyndham Manor was meant to be kind of a more senior and reflective area. And the one on the new community center site at Oakville Trafalgar was meant to have more of a health and activity and wellness focus. And that was the way that we looked at the whole campus of parks, so that each park would have its own kind of unique vision and a unique kind of designing. So keep that in mind, that when we're looking at Wallace Park, it was with that initial vision of it being a youth-oriented facility. And this is the plan that was developed by MBTW in 2018 as part of that campus, and it was approved in principle as the preferred concept going forward. And as we get into the rest of the plans tonight, you'll see a lot of similarities. It was a very conscious decision that we did not want to revisit the entire design of the park, and we wanted to keep the main features that had already been agreed to with the previous consultations. So you will see common elements. Obviously, the main change that you'll see from today is that the baseball diamond has been removed. It's replaced with a multi-surface court that would allow for basketball use during the seasonal months, and then a winterized refrigerated ice rink during the winter months. It also shows a replacement of the existing washroom facility, and then a new playground facility in the center of the park area. And these are complemented, obviously, with landscape areas and pathways that would connect to the adjacent streets. So that was our launching point back in 2018. And then in early part of 2020, our department initiated a public proposal call for a new consulting team to work on the development and detailed design of the park. Right now, we're at the preferred concept level, and pending the comments and information that we get from tonight's meeting, we will then be moving on to a detailed design level with the planned anticipation of constructing the park in 2022. As I mentioned in the opening introduction, the consulting team that was ultimately hired about a year ago was led by OMC Landscape Architecture, and that's Mary Ann McCricky, who will be speaking to that. And with that, I am going to turn over this portion of the presentation to her.
Thank you, Janice, and good evening, councillors, residents, and staff. I'll just walk you through the refined concept for Wallace Park. You'll see that many of the features of the original concept are still in place. The outdoor basketball for summer and outdoor rink for winter are still in the roughly southeast quadrant of the park. North of that, or actually west, I suppose, if north is diagonal, is the play space for the children. The refined concept also continues to have a wide spine down the middle for gathering space.
Sorry to interrupt. You want to use the mouse to point? You can. It's right to the left.
This one.
Yeah, and then the cursor can point to areas. Oh, you need to not.
All right.
Yes, just move it.
All right. Thank you.
Sorry to interrupt.
No, I appreciate that. Thank you very much. So to the west are the play spaces for children, and I'll get into a bit more detail about that as I go on. And also, we've continued to keep the diagonal path that links Allen with Sheddin. We call that neighborhood shortcuts. The main difference between the original concept and this is the change in the building. And Michael from ATA will be explaining that in a few moments. I think we need to talk a bit about tree status. The goal at Wallace Park was to retain as many of the existing trees as possible. The green circles represent trees to be retained, and the yellow circles with the X, trees to be removed. With the refined concept, it's entirely possible. We're working very hard to be able to retain an existing large tree, which you see to the left of the ball diamond. Other trees may need to be removed due to health. Some of them are in poor condition. Some of them were never, like the ones along the, oh, there it goes again. The ones along the property boundaries, some of them are growing through fences. They planted themselves a long time ago and they're not in good condition. So the arborist has reviewed the trees, and there's a report describing all of their fitness and their health. The proposed playground area for the children has been divided into the west sector for the preschoolers. That is the space that's closest to the washroom, separated by a walkway and some green space, and another area for the older children to the other side. We've also included a bit of green space in between the two playgrounds. We find that that's a great way of getting more shade into the play space where the children are located. Did I miss a slide? Yes, there was a proposal call issued earlier. A number of companies competed, and ultimately Park and Play Design were engaged to supply and install the future play structures. So this is a view of the proposed play structure from the older children's play area looking toward the younger. And this is one of the color concepts that they've provided, color concept 1. None of the concepts are final in terms of color. They're still to be determined. Here's another view from the younger children's play area through to the older children's play area at the back of the slide. The proposed basketball court for summer and refrigerated rink in the winter are they'll be lit both summer and winter. And the basketball court sizes are there and the ice rink size to the left. And the red line is where the boards will be installed in the wintertime to manage the ice. I'd now like to turn this over to Michael. Michael is going to describe the building and the development of the building.
Thank you, Marianne, and good evening to all councillors, residents, and staff. Throughout the process, we've been very sympathetic to the existing site conditions, including trees, the existing programs, and the connection to the 3 streets, Reynolds, Sheddin, and Allen. From schematic design, we used as the springboard the original placement of the building, and we've studied various massing and plan models. And we think that this one that we've come up with serves the town and the community and the neighborhood the best. We've divided it into 2 parts. And one is the mechanical or service wing, and that consists of the Zamboni garage, the ice refrigeration system that will be stored indoors, and the ice-making condensing units which will be on-grade exterior with a screening to provide visual disconnection and also security. We also have the public wing, which includes the 3 bathrooms, a men's, women's, and a universal, some storage for the tennis club, and also a small mechanical room just to deal with some of the HVAC equipment. And what connects both buildings or both wings is a canopy which flies out and provides some shelter for both the exterior playgrounds and the ice and basketball court surface. What it also does is it creates this breezeway that will act as a path from the parking lot off of Reynolds and through from the tennis court through to the park itself. Before we go on to the next slide, what I'd like to point out is in the slight adjustment of the building and the separation of the building into 2 wings, what we've done is we've been able to consolidate some of the services going to the ice rink, being cost effective, sort of reducing the length of some of these conduits and the refrigeration lines. And we've also created a clear and safe path from the Zamboni garage straight through to the ice pad and then back, which we think is very important. So all the views that you're seeing now are a part of about a 3-option series that we presented to city staff thus far. This is the view from the Reynolds parking. So this is what you would see as you approach this breezeway. So you say the breezeway in the center that connects both wings. This is the mechanical wing, and this is the public wing or the washrooms. And this is the screening that we're starting to develop and starting to articulate in terms of what hides the exterior condensing ice making equipment. In terms of all the materials, like I said, we've presented about 5 options that consist of raised or panelized systems, both in phenolic and in metal or aluminum, all the way to stone and brick veneers. From the park side, so this is as if I'm standing in the play area, what we see is this connecting canopy, a breezeway that connects both buildings and provides some shelter and screening during the summer months, and also some shelter during the winter months when the ice pad to this side over here, to the south side, would be used. What you also see is this idea of both sort of roofs that sort of create this single structure. We have areas for community display and display boards, and we also have this built-in wraparound bench at the base of both wings that would allow for seating for, let's say, changing of skates or putting on skates during the winter months. And this is just some of the options in terms of a brick veneer to a phenolic or a composite panel system. And again, those are going to be sort of detailed, and a preferred option will be selected as we move forward. In terms of the soffit itself, this option has a wood slat soffit with integrated lighting. So all washrooms will be open all year round. They will be accessible to AODA standards, and the mechanical systems have been located in close proximity to their purpose. And the biggest driving factor for us was to get the mechanical and ice making systems close to that ice pad. So I'll turn it over now back to Mary Ann, and she can summarize just the landscape portions. Thank you.
Thank you, Michael. With respect to the rest of the site, the lit basketball and ice rinks will be on timer. We'll have separate playground spaces for children organized by age. The paved and lit pathways, they enhance safety and accessibility, and particularly, as Michael mentioned, the separation of the Zamboni path from the pedestrian walkway. That was something very important for our team. Large non-program green space remains at the north end of the park, along with landscape and drainage improvements. We thank you for your time tonight, and we now would like to open for questions. Janice?
Just want to thank both Mary Ann and Michael for their portions of the presentation. And as I alluded to in my opening comments, as we got about 3 or 4 slides into the presentation, we realized it was not the final version that we had planned to present tonight. We had made some tweaks and edits following a kind of a dry run yesterday. So when we actually post the presentation on our website, you may note a couple of changes. They're very subtle. They're not going to really be material of the actual content, but don't think that we're trying to slide one by you. We just noticed a few things were missing. One of the notable things was actually another slide right now before we took the questions, and to outline next steps, because people want to know, okay, great, plans look great, what are you doing about it? So we originally had the construction budget plan for 2021, and as everyone knows, COVID took a hit on all factors of the economy, no matter where you were. So for the most part, most of our capital program was deferred for about 12 months. So right now, the construction budget for the Wallace Park enhancements and development that we've presented tonight will sit in our 2022 as a new request, and as it does every year, it would have to be approved by council before it goes forward. But that's our current timeline, is that we're hopeful that we can build this park in 2022. In terms of questions, we didn't issue any kind of a formal questionnaire or question and answer sheet. And any questions that we can't answer in this live format this evening, you're certainly welcome to follow up by email after you've maybe looked at the presentation in more detail, or if you were not able to join us this evening. We'll certainly take questions in that format. And we also, as we get into the more details of the actual building design, we plan to bring those to the AAC committee for their review. And they've always been a very good format for kind of bouncing detailed designs off when it comes to the final accessible details of our facilities. I'm going to look around the room to see if I missed anything else we're all good? I'm hearing all good. So now I will say we can formally take questions and answers. I will try to address as many as I can, but I may call some of our other team members up here if I'm not able to.
Thanks, Janice. First question we have, will the fences on Sheddin and Allen be removed?
Yes, that is certainly our plan. I know during the initial consultations back in 2018, I think there's a very strong desire to open up the park. The fencing not only is kind of a deterrent to kind of opening the publicness of the park area, but it also kind of dictates where people are entering at the corner. So we would certainly like to remove that. It's a bit of an eyesore, and as Mary Ann spoke to during the kind of tree discussion, there's some trees that are intergrowing with it. So that is certainly part of our plan.
Thanks. Next question, what is the budget for this?
We kind of thought this one might be coming. Our working construction budget right now, all in, is $3.5 million. And like I said, that will go forward as a request next year. We will have the opportunity, after we get to a higher level of design, both on the buildings and on the park, to do another estimate on what we anticipate the cost to be. Not hiding anything, construction costs, generally speaking, have gone up. If any of you have done home projects, you know you've tried to buy 2x4s, they've probably gone up 20–30% since last year. So we'll have to reevaluate what the proposed cost is in time for our 2022 budget submission.
Next question, why a basketball court and not a pickleball court? Few facilities for pickleball available in Oakville, while basketball is prevalent in every school.
Not sure if there's an easy answer, but if you were able to join us towards the beginning of the presentation when I was talking about the campus of parks, and that each park within the area was intended to have a different function within the community. Wallace was intended to be a youth-focused facility, and that led naturally to basketball. Not sure if you're all in Ward 3 or not, but if you've had public schools, whether they be on the Catholic board or the public board, you may have noticed that in many cases they're taking down basketball hoops and nets at certain times of the year, or certainly through the COVID period. So we don't want to be 100% reliant on school boards for providing those kind of facilities. And when we look at kind of the radius of parks and open space in this area, there is a general lack of basketball. So that was kind of a requested item that came forward during the initial consultations back in 2018. And then I guess to jump back to the other part of it, pickleball, we're certainly trying to provide pickleball on a geographic basis throughout the town. We first started by developing a lot of shared line facilities on existing tennis courts. And we've started to build dedicated facilities. We've had that opportunity in North Oakville with some of our newer neighborhood parks. And without putting any kind of commitments forward, as we kind of go into the detailed design and consultations with the tennis club, we might have that discussion with them to see if that's an opportunity that can be explored there.
Next question is, what is the angle for the overhang? It looks like it's sloped high to low from west to east.
Just to clarify, that would be the breezeway connecting the two buildings that Michael spoke to. I'm going to ask Michael if he happens to know what the angle is.
Yes, the angle of the two roofs, the higher roof is at a pitch of 412. So that would be the bathroom facility or the public. And that's to get natural light into the washrooms themselves from both directions. The lower roof, which makes up the canopy and the mechanical buildings, that's sloped at 212. And the roof system is going to be, or proposed to be, standing seam metal roof.
I'll just go ahead and ask the next question then. Was there any consideration given to having an indoor change/storage space for skates/leaving boots and street shoes/basketball shoes? It's cold for kids in the winter.
Short answer is yes, we did consider that when we started the initial development of the program for the buildings. I think when we looked at it, when we developed a number of different options, which started with a single building, we did consider a dedicated warmed room, but when we started to think about the seasonality, general warming trends, we thought, we might only be looking for that kind of facility from maybe December to February, maybe at best November to March. So I think that factored into kind of the energy conservation and whether we really wanted that dedicated room for all year. And that also led to what Michael presented today in the establishment of the two buildings kind of separated, where the washroom facility on the north would be open 12 months of the year, and then gave us the opportunity to only operate the Zamboni mechanical space for the seasons that the ice rink is running. So I'll just add one other comment. With the overhead breezeway, we have considered the fact that it does allow us, we could probably do, you may have seen this in other locations, we could do suspended heat systems as warming areas or the benches and things like that. We've not explored those details, but that's certainly something we could further as we move forward in the design.
Next question is on Sheddin. The trees are planted close to the street, and the plan shows parking and a curb. Is this possible?
I'm going to rely on my memory. I'm hoping that's the plan that was presented tonight. We recognize that there is a very limited parking opportunities on site, and the existing parking that the town has control over is just really a small area beside the existing tennis courts, immediately south of the tennis courts. All the other parking that you see in the area is really controlled and owned by the curling club. So we did kind of think about that, and there's certainly a promotion to trying to get more local parking in our park areas. So if we can promote on-street parking, we would like to do that. We have shown it conceptually along Sheddin as something that's desirable. We've had preliminary discussions with our engineering and construction colleagues. It's not in the near future and will not be part of this project, but we would certainly put it forward as something that we would want to promote and encourage in the future.
That leads to our next question. Will the parking on Allen Street be removed?
I'm going back to my memory what the image looked like. If there's existing parking along Allen today, and I'm trying to think if we have kind of the chain link fence and the wood bollards along there, I don't think we're making a proposal to remove it at this time. So I'm going to put a little asterisk beside that answer. We may need to follow up in writing on that one to confirm. I don't think we showed it in our conceptual imagery, but maybe leave that as a takeaway for us, and we can kind of, if we can record who the question's from, we can try and get back to them in a couple of days.
Next question is, what time do the lights of the court/rink go off?
Our general bylaw for all sports facilities across town is they go off by 11 p.m. unless there's some other special circumstance. But all our ball diamonds, all our soccer field lighting are all controlled by an overriding timer, and they have to go off by 11 p.m. at the latest.
Next question is, will the green space have water systems?
If you're referring to automated irrigation, no, we had not contemplated that because it is a fairly large area. We would typically reserve irrigation for either higher class sports fields and maybe limited to horticultural display areas. But short answer is no, we're not contemplating that for here.
This next one is just a comment. The fencing creates a sense of safety in the park from the street. The current fence is ugly, but could there be a smaller fence around the perimeter? So I guess there is a question in there.
I guess that's certainly a design detail that we can certainly look to. We would also be looking for kind of, I guess, a summary of consensus from the public comments that we get from today's meeting to get a sense of whether people prefer the openness of a park that's not fenced in versus the security that they might feel from a smaller fence along the perimeters.
A question following up on the budget, what is the date for budget submission?
Oh, It's so early in 2021, I honestly don't know, and I'm thinking it's actually an election year, which sometimes puts a little bit of a delay into it. I may look to our counselors to see if they actually know, if either Councillor Janet or Councillor Dave happen to know what the budget cycle is for 22.
Thanks, Janice. Councillor Dave here. The election is 2022, so the budget for 2023 will be delayed until after the election. The budget for 2022, we're going to be having a very preliminary meeting coming up in a couple of months, but call it this fall, but that will be publicized widely.
Great. Appreciate that, Councillor. Yeah, I guess I was jumping ahead of myself thinking 22, but yeah. So just for background information, normally our capital budget goes through kind of the final deliberations in late November, December, and is usually approved by January, usually mid-January at the very latest has been our typical.
Next question, is there a plan, is the plan for the hockey rink to have full-size boards around the entire rink? And then another question with that is, how many basketball nets are planned?
I'll start with the easier half of the question. There's basically, it's 2 basketball hoops, full-size NBA size court. I think it's 94 by 50 or 96 by 50, give or take. So yeah, 2 sets of hoops designed for full court play. The actual design and detailing of the rink boards, we've not really had a high level of discussion on that. I would imagine it may have full size, like approximately 4-foot high boards on the ends where you might be more likely to see shooting of pucks during shinny games. Whether we'd go full 4-foot all the way around, I'm not sure. That's a design detail we'd have to get into.
Next question is, will a sidewalk on Allen Street along the perimeter also be included in construction?
Short answer is it would not be part of our planned construction for the park. In working on both Wyndham Street and the Oakville Trafalgar Community Center, I know there is some road widenings in the area, and I think Allen Street may be subject to a future road widening as well. It may be shown on our plans. So the intent would be, as the sidewalk is typically part of a municipal right-of-way, that gets constructed as part of our engineering and roads and works program. So you'd see the typical, I'll say, you normally see the typical sidewalk, boulevard space, curb, and then roadway. So not us.
Next question is, Brentwood Park has soccer goalposts for informal pickup soccer matches. Previously, we discussed moving them to open space at Wallace Park. I don't know if that's a question you want to make a comment on, or?
I'm certainly familiar with what's existing at Brentwood. I can say personally I was not aware of any plan to relocate them to Wallace. That was, it was not shown in the preferred concept that we started with from 2018. It may have been a comment that was reviewed and ultimately dismissed, but no, there's no current plans to do that.
Have there been any studies to determine noise levels from the basketball courts? Thinking that the curling rink wall would deflect or would reflect a lot of the sound.
We have not done any noise studies to that, but we recognize that based on other projects that we've done in the past, noise from any activity, especially if it's a change of activity in a park, may have some impact on, I guess, local enjoyment from local residents in the area. We can certainly look at that a little bit further. But again, I'm going back to the memory of the proposed concept plan that Mary Ann went through. I do think that we are proposing some landscape screening and or kind of berming along that edge, which would certainly help to control some noise and some visuals from that end of it. But good point to brought forward, and it's something that we'll keep in mind as we get into detailed design. I'll also note that we have unofficially approved a standard for all of our new basketball courts. We've gone to a fiberglass backboard. We found that it's a little quieter than the typical aluminum that is provided in most areas. If you live in that area and you've heard the basketball hit an aluminum backboard, it has a very distinctive bong. We found that it's a little more subdued with the newer fiberglass units that we've been installing.
So next question is regarding the Breezeway. If the high side is on the west, it provides no shade for later in the day. Is this factored into the design to or how is this factored into the design to maximize late day shade?
Can you repeat the question one more time? So
So regarding the breezeway,
yep.
if the high side is on the west, it provides no shade for later in the day. How is this factored into the design to maximize late day shade?
Yeah, so late day shade is probably the less intensive. So what we try to do with the orientation and the existing site conditions and the layout of the ice rink and the play structure was to create that noon shade from about 10 o'clock to about 2 o'clock. And we've done a whole series of shade and shadow studies that we can share with city staff, and they can post that. This was the optimal, under the existing conditions, the best sort of planned use of the breezeway with the 2 existing wings. But we will happily share those shade and shadow studies so you get a full sense. And that was one of the other things, to keep that breezeway not very high, but keep it to that height of about 15 to 16 feet.
Next one's on trees. So is there a way that the mature trees slated for removal close to the washroom be saved by minor design modifications to the new washroom?
I will say, yes, we will explore all opportunities to save as many trees as possible. In fact, one of the things I mentioned earlier is that we had a slightly revised program or presentation, and one of them was the actual slide that showed the proposed tree removals on site. We know there's 2 in the vicinity of the existing washroom, I'll say immediately kind of southwest to the proposed washroom. There's one there, if I recall, it's a mountain ash. It's actually in quite poor condition, so I think that will be removed regardless. But there's another one, I believe it might be a Norway maple. I'm getting nods behind me. I think that one is structurally sound, and if it's not impacted by proposed grading and through our detailed design, we will certainly make efforts to keep that one.
If there is no indoor space for boot/hockey equipment storage, will kids just leave them all randomly outside under the breezeway?
Good question. I'm not sure there's a real answer. Not having developed a facility similar to this, our real experience to date has really been the one at the Trafalgar Community Center. And they really just kind of set up benches around the perimeter of that one. I know that one's more aimed at casual skating, so we may have to revisit that and a little bit more thought into it as we go through the detailed design stage, but I appreciate the comment.
So that's the end of the questions so far. So if anyone else has any questions, feel free to type in the chat. Oh, and as I say this, another one comes up. Do the refrigeration condensers create much noise?
Michael, do you feel comfortable with that one, or?
Yep. So I have to preface that I'm not a mechanical engineer, but we've finished a similar building out for the city of Hamilton out in Freelton, and it has 6 condensing units, and you could almost relate them to a outdoor residential AC unit. This facility, we might be able to go down to 4 condensing units, and that's the area that will be outside, shielded by that about 8-foot high screen. So you could almost sort of think to your backyard and that AC unit. It's in back of the play structure. It's in back of the ice rink during the winter. So it's the furthest away. So it's right beside the parking lot. So shouldn't be a lot of noise.
So a couple more questions have came in. Could the basketball lighting affect the players on the tennis court near the parking lot?
I'm going to make a very presumptive response and say no, it shouldn't. We've not looked at the actual detailing of the actual lighting, but it's not. It certainly would not be mounted as high as what the tennis court lighting is. So I would think we would have the ability to direct and control the lighting of the basketball much more effectively. So, and they're good distance away. Would also have a little bit of buffering and separation with the proposed building complex that we've shown. But another good technical question that we'll certainly be mindful of as we work our way through detailed design.
So there's another question here on the condensing machine. Are they completely separated from the curling club?
Good question. And actually, kind of, I'll give you a little story behind that. When we started into the design development of this project, we actually met with the curling club folks. Because if you look at our plan and you see where our proposed refrigeration units are, they are kind of at that, I'll say, southeast corner, very close to the curling club facility. And we did explore at a very high level to see if there was a possibility of partnering with them and seeing if we could, either upgrade their facility or add to their facility. And ultimately, we just found that they were not really compatible uses, so we didn't go that route. I think hopefully I answered the original question there.
So there's one more question in here, and it's not related to this thing, but if there's time, can someone comment on the future plans of the Brentwood school property?
I can only say based on my knowledge, and I'm kind of here in the food chain of Town Hall, so I might not be fully aware of things. We still have plans within our own parks program to relocate the existing playground in Brentwood to I'll say a smaller parkette at the extreme south end of the Brentwood site. It's my understanding as of today, there is still a plan to move forward with a partial demolition of the Brentwood School, which I think is the gymnasium portion, and to create new residential lots on the balance of Douglas Street, I believe it is. That's my knowledge. I won't say it's 100% certain or accurate as of today's date, but that's my knowledge of the site. Councilors, I don't know if you need to weigh in or correct me on any information or.
Janice, Councillor Janet, you answered that correctly, to my knowledge. The Brentwood School and the lots are coming to council, we understand, from the Municipal Development Corp, potentially in April, if not May, for consideration of whether or not there is, if the lots will be awarded to someone for building. And the Municipal Development Corp has been focused primarily on Brentwood School, but the interest at this point is in a package of the school and the lots. And we have repeatedly said if there's an opportunity for the developer to leave some extra land for green space, we would like that. But that is Councillor Giddings and myself's request, not necessarily council's request.
Excellent. Appreciate the follow-up there, Councillor.
And again, I have no questions in the queue here, so if there's any more, please feel free to type them in there.
So again, assuming there are no other questions, I would like to thank everybody for their time in attending virtually this evening. It is a little weird because I don't see everybody. I do see the councillors' smiling faces back at me. But I hope everybody else has found the presentation useful this evening. As we've noted, we intend to make our presentation, the updated one that we meant to present tonight, available on our website, hopefully by the end of the day tomorrow. Again, I want to thank Michael and Marianne to come out to assist this evening, David. We've also got some technical support, Brett, Jessica, Nick, and Ken disappeared. So we've got a little bit of a small team helping us out to make this happen tonight. So again, thank you to everybody. It's much appreciated, especially for me during my first COVID virtual presentation to the world. I see one more Q&A that's popped up.
It's just a comment. It says, thank you, everyone. Good presentation. I did see Councillor Giddings did have his hand up to talk. So if you want to go ahead, Councillor.
Thank you, Janice, for this session this evening. if anybody has any further questions or something that, you know, when they look at the plans, if they have anything further, obviously they can feel free to reach out to Councillor Janet or myself. And would you be the go-to person at the staff level, Janice, for any further questions?
No, I would ask, David's son is our project manager, and I think everybody received the Zoom link from David earlier today, so hopefully they have that email already there. Yeah, any questions regarding tonight's presentation, clarifications can certainly be sent to David. David will be looking at all of those and kind of summarizing them. And I think I said at the beginning during the agenda, we usually allow for 2 weeks, so I think we're hoping to get all comments back from the public by, I think it's April 13th, I believe it's 2 weeks from today.
And will there be a further follow-up after any tweaking is done to the plans? Will that be coming back, or how will that be dealt with?
I would suggest that unless there are very significant changes to the plan that we presented tonight, there would not be any formal follow-up. We would certainly contact the people that have participated in this evening's discussions or any follow-up emails and let them know that we are moving forward with the design as planned. I think I mentioned also earlier, we will have another session where we have the building designed to a higher level that we'll be presenting that to AAC. It's my understanding AAC also constitutes a public meeting, so that may be another opportunity for specific comments from the public.
Thank you very much.
Okay, I'm getting the nods. Thank you again for everybody. Appreciate your time. Stay safe.